Hey, man.
What's up? What did I say? Why did it come out that way? What's up?
Have you ever heard of Action Park?
Action Park?
Action Park.
Is it a really cool skateboard park?
Well, I mean, that's kind of right.
Okay.
Partially.
Okay. Is it a tech deck skate deck park? Skate deck park? Skate deck park?
Skateboard. Tech deck.
Tech board. Skate
Techboard,
deck
skate deck.
park. Tech park.
Skate boy.
Tory.
Skater boy. Later boy. Park.
Right.
That's what it is.
Okay. So it's a little roller rink.
Roller rink for your tech decks. And all your shoes.
Dude,
are
what
tech
year were
decks
tech decks? Was
instead
that
of-
2008?
Oh, they were around way longer than that.
You think? Well, I mean, like, yeah, but when did they become like a cultural norm? Because that's not the question. The question is not when were they founded. It's kind of like pillow pets.
Well,
they
yeah.
were invented by your dad a long time ago, and then they came to market in like the early 2000s, and then they became a huge thing in like 2012.
Okay.
You know?
So they've been around since the 60s.
Tech decks?
Yeah.
No
But not
way.
the brand Tech Deck.
Okay,
Fingerboards.
okay. Yeah.
Tech Deck started in 99.
Fingerboards have been around for a long time.
Yeah. Tech Deck started in 99 and then blew up in the early 2000s. So, but yeah, I remember that. Like,
Imagine, so it took like 9 years for it to really blow
to
up.
really explode.
So imagine, because I mean, if you run tech decks as a company, right, and it's like wildly successful,
Yeah.
that's all right.
Yeah.
You know, but imagine like 2004 where you're making 6 figures a year doing tech decks, but
Yeah.
like people are just like, what do you do? And you're like,
I make little mini skateboards
Well-
for your fingers.
you ever heard of fingerboards? And they're like, I'm a Christian. And you're like, no, it's it's like a different like. They're like, I've heard of it was 2004, so they're like, I've heard of waterboard, and you're like, no.
Different thing.
We don't do that
Different thing. Is that where you like put someone's finger underwater until they tell you all the
until they tell you all the terrorist
It's like,
secrets.
oh, my fingers are so wet.
Yeah, so
I
we
can't handle it. Don't get my fingers
no
anymore.
no fingerboarding is whenever you at a sleepover you put someone's hand in
there.
water and so
then
they pee themselves.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do lots of fingerboarding.
Things I learned last night. TILLN it.
Hey, if you like things I learned last night, make sure you support us on Patreon. Doing that, we'll make sure that you can watch episodes ad-free. You can ask us questions about the episode or just about like us because we're weird and it's fun. So support us online. That's TILLN.com/join. That's JO lowercase LN.
Well, this sure did jump off the tech deck rails super fast, didn't it? You want
Yeah.
to start over?
Yeah. So Action Park is
So Action Park is
nothing to do with tech decks.
Oh.
Well, loosely. I mean, there could be a loose
a loose tech
connection,
deck.
a loose tech deck here. No, it was.
Is it a theme park?
Yes, it was a theme park in
And
New
the
Jersey.
theme is action.
The theme is action. It was a theme park in New Jersey that was hit its peak popularity in the 80s.
Okay.
And it is known as being one of the most dangerous theme parks ever. Tons and tons of injuries. And we'll get this out of the way on the front. 6 people did die there. So very, very dangerous.
Completely different incidents. Not
Completely, yeah. Like, it wasn't just once.
one incident that killed
There's-
6 people.
Yeah, there's 2 that happened within a week of each other. And for some reason, the people who owned this theme park and the city and the state and the country and just families were like, yeah, we're going to keep going there.
And the owner of Tech Deck was like, this is still a valid company.
We're still going to do it. But yeah, so...
I mean, that's, the time that the guy who does chainsaw art at Silver Dollar City, or not even chainsaw art, the axe art or whatever, he let go of the axe, cut a girl's leg off. They shut down for a year.
A whole year?
Yeah, I made that up, but but I imagine that would be their response. You know?
Well,
did you know, this is also a fun fact, did you know that the people who own $7 City, they also own Whitewater, right?
Yeah.
They also own our favorite, the Washington Generals.
Like in the state of Washington?
No, hear me out. The Washington Generals, which is the team that plays the other team that they own, the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh!
Did you know it's the same family that owns the whole thing?
I did. Okay, now that you're saying that, I did know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm a little mad that you didn't know who the Washington Generals were.
I forgot.
Well, your Christmas gift is going to be real awkward this year then. You're going to open it and be like, who? Is this a team in Washington?
Here's what I've noticed. Here's what I've noticed recently is I have a bad memory. And I used to think...
You've noticed that before.
You just forgot.
You just forgot that you noticed it. You've made this observation before.
No, because I used to have this thing where, high school football.
You are getting very excited to talk about this. Like, your breath is like...
No, that's my allergies.
So in high school...
I used to have this thing in high school football where, in film day, we'd be watching plays from the previous week, right? Literally 3 or 4 days removed from the game.
Yeah.
And things would happen and my coach would ask me questions about it. And I literally could never remember.
Can you remind us what position you played?
I was kind of all over the field. I was one of those guys where it's like, just put me in, coach. Because I just wanted to play really bad, but I wasn't good enough. And so anytime there was an opening,
glad you said
I would
that.
kind of get to just fall in to the lineup. But my spot was cornerback.
Okay.
But I moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Anyways, I could never remember. My coach would be like, "Hey, so what happened there?" And I'd be like,
Something you just watched? Like, you watch a video, and then they go, "What happened?" And you go...
Well, I mean...
you got me.
I mean, we did... Okay, yeah, so I saw it, but, I could never remember, and even now, looking back, I remember, 4 instances in my entire high school football career from games, and it was, 1 interception, 1 fumble, where I, scooped the fumble. This was the first game I played in high school football. I scooped the fumble.
Senior year.
I scooped the fumble. It was the beginning of my senior year. The end of my senior year. Last game of my senior year. First game.
A special game that they threw just before graduation so that I could say I played in high school.
It was we're going to play. Okay. We're going to...
Yeah. My actual... so my high school didn't have enough players to make a full team. And I was still third string.
They couldn't... They played with 10 people on the
field. They were like, we would rather play with 10 than play
just not have you on the field.
And they're like, no, you got 11 people on your team. And the coach went, where?
No, we don't. We'll go.
I can't remember.
We'll do 10. No, but I scooped the fumble.
Yeah.
And I scoop it up, and it was a wide open field. Quarterback dropped it in the backfield. I scoop it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you just
easily
see it. You're
take
like,
it to
this is
touchdown.
it.
And so I had that moment where I was like, oh, I'm taking it to the house. But then in my head, I heard my coach's voice, and it was kind of like in the movies when their heads pop up. I saw him.
Yeah.
Over his shoulder.
In the clouds or whatever.
His name was Coach Fickert, and Coach Fickert was
okay, whoa! Don't say that on the podcast. What? Wow.
He was like, don't be a hero. If you get a fumble, just fall on it. Don't try to scoop it up. And so I heard him say that in my head, and I was like, oh, I need to just fall on it, not scoop it up. So I had already picked it up. I had taken 4 steps, and I was like, I got to fall on it. So I just went horizontal and just fell on this fumble.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand.
That was how that play ended.
So I want to make sure I understand.
And that's why I remember it, because it was so dumb. You don't have to, you understand. It was stupid is what it was.
Yeah.
You don't have to drill it in.
So it's kind of like, I just want to make sure I understand. So it's kind of like when you hydroplane, you're not supposed to hit the brakes, right? So what you're saying is that when you hydroplane, you hit the brakes. You're spinning out, so then you're like, got to hit the gas, right? And so that's what you're telling me.
That's kind of where I was at, yeah. So I remember that. I remember an interception I got.
It's kind of like whenever you cut someone off because you didn't use your turn signal, and then a mile down the road, you use your turn signal to be like, hey,
I know I got that.
And they're like, okay.
You're a little late. Yeah. but yeah, and then I remember
So that
one
was
of my
your
friends
star
getting a
moment.
concussion. One of my friends getting a concussion. I remember that play, and then I remember
He doesn't.
and then I remember tackling a guy, and it was like I had to like dive and grab his feet and like pulled him and got his cleat stuck in my face mask. And so like we went down and his foot was stuck there. We had to like pry it out. That's literally all the plays I remember.
You know what I love about you is just your humility. You know, I just love that you never tell stories where you're on top here. You know, like you always, all of your stories end with me going, oh. You never tell stories where you're the hero.
I mean, one of those I had the game-winning
appreciate
interception,
you.
but I mean that's not interesting. That's not exciting. I got
Was it a
stuck in
pick
my
six?
face. It was. Well, no, it wasn't a pick six, but we were.
It was. I picked it off, and then I saw my coach's head go fall on the ground. So I just. Whoop.
No, it was we were up. It was the end of the fourth quarter. They were driving down the field.
We were up by 33, and I got the interception for a game-winning interception. I'll tell you.
We were up by 3, and they were driving down the field. They were in the red zone. I picked it off in the red zone, and that was the end of the game. It was like a minute left. So that was the one. That was like one of my only good plays. But I couldn't remember. But here's what I'm realizing. Here's the point of all of this.
Yeah.
There's no reason to relive.
Yeah, I can't remember where we started.
The point of all of this is I couldn't remember anything. Like and literally like the week of, my coach would be like, "Hey, tell me what was going on there." I'd be like, "I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't remember." And I'm realizing with this podcast too, our jokes, our listeners remember better than I do. Because I'll see
get
tweets.
reminded.
I'll see tweets and stuff about it, and I'll be like, "Is that something I should know?" Like, I don't.
What?
I'm like, that's a really weird.
People will be like, "Oh, fiddle off, Tim," and you're like,
like,
"Should I understand that?"
What
or
does this mean?
Hey, hold on, what's it? I know that's why you text me all the time, and you go, "Do I get this?" You know?
Hey, I don't understand this. Can you explain it? And you'll be like, "Yeah, that's a joke you made."
You said that. You set that up.
Like, really? I don't know.
Do you remember where we were?
Action Park. Yeah, we've got a lot to cover, so we need to stay on the rails on this
sorry.
one.
So 6 people have died.
6 people have died.
In 6 different incidents.
6 different incidences.
Wow.
And this is they're one of those places where they got like the really just awful lawyers.
Yeah.
So like, for example, one of the people who died, they fell off of a ride and hit a rock. And so the lawyers won the case because they were like, the rock killed him, not the ride. And they won the case over that. So they're like those kind of people where it's like, you are awful.
Yeah.
So those are the people that run this park. But let's take it back to the beginning. It was started by a guy named Eugene Mulvihill. Rough. This guy, to give you a picture, he got his start on Wall Street.
Okay.
And he got banned from Wall Street for being in the 80s. Banned from
That's
Wall
like
Street.
getting
Well, actually,
banned
in the
from
70s.
Tinder. You know? We're like,
real.
you should just, if they won't take you.
Yeah, he was too shady for Wall Street. He started a company and he did one of those pump and dump scams.
What's a pump and dump skin?
He's like, I've scanned all these pictures and I'm dumping them all over the city. I've got a bunch of scans of this pump. I've just scanned all these pumps and I'm throwing them all over the city.
People are like, this is a real pump and dump.
No, it's
Thanks, Eugene
Mulvihill.
Mulvihill. It's kind of like how I didn't know how to pronounce the professor in Harry Potter's name. Starts with an M. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Alex? You seem like you're that kind of person.
Starts with an M.
I gotta be nice to Alex.
We're gonna lose him.
He's done after this, man. I'm sorry. I was 40 minutes late today to my own apartment, okay? And Alex is just not letting it go.
Alex has let it go.
I'm not letting it go. I look over, I make a joke with Alex, and Alex is like,
yeah.
I don't know, man.
I only got here a couple minutes after Alex, and I don't even remember any of that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So they just got shady people all around. So a person opens the park.
Yeah, so he gets kicked out of the New York Stock Exchange for being too shady.
Yeah.
And he looked for investors. He got a couple people to invest.
He's like, well, if I can't scam you, I'm going to scam your kids.
Well, so he had some people who he worked with that were like, yeah, we'll invest in what you want to do.
Okay.
He actually had Donald Trump came, was one of his associates, and Donald Trump was like, nah, he's a little too shady for me. I'm not going to invest in what he's doing. So this is the kind of guy that we're talking about.
Right.
And so
this is going to come out after the election. Where the only person too shady for Donald Trump, then you're like, all right, I guess we should be a little cautious of this person's roller coasters.
Yeah. So
Trump's like, you know what?
So
you can use my workers to build it.
So he goes out into New Jersey, right outside of the New York Metro. Newark. Right outside the New York Metro, in this town called Vernon, little mountain town.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah, you grew up right there. You
Mount
remember
Vernon.
Action Park?
Yeah.
And so we
didn't call it that.
We called it Come and Go.
Yeah, we called it Jimmy's Jigsaw. Like, it was just like a weird wooden tower, and it had basically what happened was all these city parks that they built with the taxpayer money, and Jimmy was like, well, it's taxpayer funded, which means I bought it. So he went and took all the things and made his own stuff.
Oh, geez.
And one of them was like the intention was to kill people. So
there you go.
Only a few people wrote it.
So he started out, he rented this giant plot of land in this small town, and he rented it from the state of New Jersey. So rented this giant plot of land, and opened up a ski resort.
Oh, okay.
And like all good 80s capitalists, he was like, I'm going to build the biggest artificial snow machine in
obviously,
the world. And so that's what he did. He built this giant thing. And pretty quickly though, it became.
But do they need artificial snow up there?
I mean, you don't need them, but like out in Colorado, all the ski resorts have artificial machines too. Because I mean, you get snow, but I mean, there will be weeks where it's not thick enough to ski, and so you always have to keep it up. So
is it like a Zamboni? Does it move?
No, it's just a big tower that like a hazer on a stage that just blows the snow all over the mountain.
Okay, so it's synthetic snow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And we're fine with that?
There's probably some people who aren't.
Yeah.
Probably not.
People are like, they're making clouds and snow?
Yeah,
not in God's green world, they aren't.
Alex's fans haven't figured that one out yet.
You have fans?
No.
I know what you meant, but I kind of want him to have fans.
Me too. Alex, what's your Twitter handle? Can we throw it up?
No, we don't want people to know what he looks like.
Do you have any pictures on Twitter?
Here's what I love, though.
Can you take all your pictures off Twitter?
Do you have pictures on the internet? Yeah?
Can you take them all off?
Can you delete all your profiles, please?
Can you remove yourself
Can you please
from all of your social...
Can you scrub your accounts, please? Not for any safety issues, you're getting chased by anybody, just for a bit.
Just Photoshop a silhouette over you in every picture you have online.
They're going to know what your wife looks like, but it's still a mystery. And the reason we're doing it is because we want to be able to change you out for a different person eventually. We'll hire someone else, but we'll still call him Alex.
We'll still call him Alex.
Yeah.
We've actually done this 3 times.
We've done it
third Alex.
4 times. You don't remember the other one.
I forgot about that guy.
Stupid.
So his vision was he was going to turn this tiny town in New Jersey
biggest ski resort.
Well, no, he wanted to turn it into the next Orlando or Vegas. That was his vision. He's like, this is going to be Orlando or Vegas.
Those towns that they go by one name. It's Orlando, Vegas, Vernon. Come on.
That's his vision. He's like, oh, where everyone's going out to Vernon this weekend.
Vernon.
What happens in Vernon stays in
What are
Vernon.
you guys doing at the Vern?
We're hitting Vern.
Feel the Vern. Dude, I feel like there's merch there already.
And so he
Weekend
actually
at Vernie's? Come on. Put me in charge of marketing.
This is going well already. So they opened up the ski lodge, and he actually right away was able to get on the phone with Hugh Hefner and open up a Playboy lodge in Vernon. So the people of Vernon didn't like Mulva Hill already because, he brought sin to their small town.
Is that why they didn't like it? Was because of the Playboy thing?
That was where it started. That's where it started.
They were fine with the ski resort.
They were fine with the ski
They're like,
resort.
this makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
When he pulled out the Playboy thing, and then everything else he did after that.
Like, we got a ski resort. First, we got a ski resort. Then we got a Dollar General. This is crazy. And then now we got these half-naked girls. Whoa. I'm not, no.
So he quickly noticed, he's like, okay, ski resorts make a lot of money in the winter, but no money in the summer. And so he's like, I got to figure out a way to make this profitable in the summer because I'm still paying rent over the summer. So he built this Alpine slide. Now, do you know what an Alpine slide is? Have you ever ridden one?
Yep.
No, you don't. I can tell by the way you said that. Do you remember?
No. It was kind of what that Jerry's Jigsaw Farm had an Alpine slide. He just had like a '96 Honda Civic on these rails. It wasn't very far. It would just go from his back porch down into the backyard, and then he would you had to pull the car back up yourself.
Yeah.
So you had to dude.
There are these chains you had to.
Everyone in my town was like super ripped. It was crazy.
He had like this backpack strap that you could.
Yeah, and then you got to pull it. So not a lot of us rode it mostly because we couldn't pull the car up. But I think that's what an Alpine slide is.
You're close.
Yeah,
you're really close. Actually, kind of close.
Is it one of the mountain coasters? Is that what that is?
Yeah. It's a mountain coaster. It's very similar to a mountain coaster. So mountain coasters, they have the two rails, and you've got the cart that like mounts on it and rides it like a roller coaster. Alpine slides, similar concept, but it's like a louvre or a luge. So you got the little slide, and then you just ride it. It goes down the mountain and it turns and has the berms and stuff. So we opened one of those. Here's the catch. So normally these are made out of like metal or like fiberglass or plastic, like something that's like relatively like okay.
Right. This one was just made out of fat people that put their arms around you and they slide down.
Just down the open mountain.
It's like they're just rolling down the hill, but you're insulated, because you're held in there.
Yeah, those guys.
That's like whenever people do like the tire thing too, like you get in the tire and do the
same concept. But yeah, so
which is like super not safe, right?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not safe.
Don't do it.
So they built it out of a mixture that was concrete, fiberglass, and asbestos. Mostly asbestos.
Great.
And so it was not. It had like the cracks in it. So like when you ride an Alpine slide, there's like a little lever in the middle that's like your brake, and so you can push it all the way forward, and your brake isn't on at all. You pull it all the way back, your brake's on all the way. And here's the thing that was a problem with this is because he didn't hire any experts or engineers to build this.
Right.
He just knew a guy who could pour concrete, and so he's like just build the Alpine slide. And so he built this thing.
He's like no. The guy's like, I've never built an Alpine slide. He's like, no. It's kind of like what you did at that farm. Right? Just do it bigger.
Just do it bigger.
And just like a little, basically we're going to use a bathtub as a mold, right? So we're going to pour the concrete, push the tub into it.
Yeah.
Pour a little more concrete, push the tub into it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what they did. And it was kind of like a sidewalk where you got the cracks. And so the wheels would hit the cracks and like you can mess yourself up,
Oh, yeah.
And
I was wondering where you're going with it.
And here's the thing, because they didn't have any engineers or experts like designing this thing.
The slopes, the hills,
the curves. If you didn't brake, there was a few spots where if you didn't intentionally brake, you were flying off the side of this slide, and then you're going down the side of this mountain. So it's like at some points like it's mountain, some points it's like piles of rocks, some points it's trees, like. And if you don't intentionally brake, you're done. You're leaving the ride. And how'd
they find that out?
Because people did it.
People were leaving the ride.
People were leaving the ride.
And he was mad because they were losing their little carts,
Yeah,
They were like, oh, man.
Dang it, there goes another cart. Well,
never going to get that back.
Another problem with this is their carts.
Did people die on that?
Yes. And so that someone flew out.
Are those all 6 of those people?
No.
Are those included in the 6?
One is included in the 6.
Oh, okay.
So one person died on that.
I thought you were saying 18 people died on that. 6 people was only just for the action park.
Yeah. So someone did die on that. They hit their head on the rock. That was the rock incident where the guy was like, "Oh, the rock killed him, not the slide," and they won that one.
Hey, if you watch this episode and you see us drinking out of these mugs and you're like, I want to drink out of those mugs while I watch this episode, great news. You can purchase these at TILLN.com/merch. We've got these mugs, some shirts. We're going to put new designs out pretty often, so please keep up with that. And all that money goes to help support this podcast and make it better.
Make it better, yeah. Also, if you subscribe on Patreon, you can find out what we put in our mugs every week.
Yeah, it's just
air.
We're fake drinking.
The other problem with it was the carts were pretty much all semi-broken or totally broken.
Yeah,
so
they were just shopping carts.
some of them, the brakes were like stuck on, so you'd go like super slow. Some of them, the brakes didn't work at all.
Yeah, all those movies that Johnny Knoxville did, they were honestly just a promotion for this guy's business. They weren't even.
So ironically,
and isn't that the most Christian thing I've done on this podcast? Is it called it all those movies that Johnny Knoxville did instead of calling it by the title of the movies? You know.
So
I did that for you, 14-year-old listener who can't hear cuss words, or your mom will make you stop listening to this podcast.
So they would go down the slide, and they would send somebody who was on one of the broken ones that was too slow, and then they wait a few seconds and send someone in the ones that couldn't brake. So they would just run into the back of the other person. They'd go flying.
Pretty funny though.
It's kind of hilarious.
I mean, like, this would be the perfect thing to do with a youth group, and then you kind of look at the guy running the ride and being like, okay,
come on.
These two kind of suck.
Come on.
Help me out.
Just come on. And then people would overhang or like fall off all the time, and it's concrete, like sidewalk concrete, so they get like burns all up them, like consistently. People would get off this ride covered in like these burns and stuff, and that led Mulvihill to say, this is going pretty well. I'm going to open up an entire theme park. And
we did this right, didn't we? Yeah.
So they did. They built an entire theme park.
They just built it themselves?
Yeah.
No engineers?
No engineers. He actually, the way he built it was anybody he knew who had an idea for a ride, he just let them build it. He's like, I'll pay you.
Roller Coaster Tycoon? What is this? Oh, here you go. No. Put it together in the game. That looks great.
That looks great. Now go build it.
Yeah. And also, just so you know, in Roller Coaster Tycoon, you can drown the mascots. And I just want you to know, for the right price, you can drown my mascots.
You can drown my mascots. Well, here's the thing. He
that's the start of Mascot Murderer 2.
So they Mascot Murderer 2.
Yeah, it's the plot of the movie. Mascot Murderer 2.
Oh my gosh.
And the Little Caesars founder's daughter is the lead role in it.
Lead role. Yep.
Do you remember that joke?
I remember that joke. So they had two sides of the park. Well, actually three. So they had the Alpine section where they had the Alpine slide and then a couple other Alpine.
They're like, hey, here's our originals
activities, right? So like ropes course, stuff like that.
Okay.
And then they had Waterworld and Motorworld. And so
I can't imagine what happened in those places.
I don't know if you can
in
imagine.
Waterworld, it's straight up like we captured this whale, and I didn't have any biologists involved. Just a guy who pours concrete and a fishing net, right? We got this whale, and the whole thing is you gotta swim faster than it.
Faster than the whale.
Because we haven't fed it in a week.
We haven't fed it in a week, and we've just been slapping it with hams all day. just slapping it.
Wait. We don't have the budget to feed this animal food. We do have the budget to slap the animal with food.
I mean, ham goes bad if you're going to eat it.
We're slapping a whale with bad ham?
But a slap ham never goes bad. That's a good slap ham right there.
I laugh because I realize that's going in the intro. I realize 100% we're slapping a whale with
I need a slap ham. Somebody give me a slap ham.
Give me a slap ham stat. Give me a hand ham. I need one now. And you wear them like gloves. You just slap your hands right in the middle and just
get you these slap hams.
Look at my ham hands. You can catch these hams.
Hey man, give me a ham shake.
Oh, do you mean a ham shake, or do you mean one of our delicious desserts available at the concession stand? A ham shake. That's what we do with
Flavored
the
like
slightly
ham.
expired ham.
It's made with ham milk.
Oh, ew.
Oh, God.
Much like the ride, this is off the rails.
Oh, my God. And so So they opened up this park, and his whole point was he had Gene was a big fan of Burger King.
We're calling him Gene now.
Yeah,
just to make sure we're on like a not a first name basis. We're on a shorter first name basis.
We're on the back half of the first name basis.
Okay, the back half. All right.
So yeah,
carry on, Em.
He was Gene. Thanks, Ron. Gene was a big fan of Burger King. You know, the whole like have it your way thing.
Okay.
And that's what he wanted for a theme park. He's like, I don't want any of this stuff where like like you get on
there's
the ride.
rules.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I want a place where there's no rules, because he was still really bitter about getting kicked out of Wall Street. He's like, I hate rules. Get rid of them. We don't need them. And also,
regulation, stupid.
Don't need it.
Safety, never
don't
heard of it.
And also he was like, I hate going to like theme parks and riding carnival rides where like you strap in and like it just
Seat
does
belts?
everything for you.
No,
like you have no control. He's like, I want to control my experience, and he's like, I want to give people control over their rides. They get to control their experience on the rides. And so that's the only kind of rides he did. So it wasn't none of the Disney World like you get on the little cart and you have the steering wheel, but then like it goes on its own and you let go of the steering wheel. You realize I'm not doing anything with the steering wheel. It wasn't no dummy steering wheels here. Everything is you.
Everything's real.
Yes. So he started building some crazy rides, and pretty quickly he realized there's not an insurance company in the world that is going to insure this park, because all of his rides were crazy and built by not professionals. So he did what any capitalist in the 80s would do.
Started his own insurance company.
Started his own insurance company.
Did. Yeah, he did.
It was an offshore company from the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
And
it's called Allstate. And he was like, you're in good hands.
Just a couple of ham. The logo's like the same as the Allstate. Just a couple of ham slices.
100%. And I didn't set it up for that joke. It just kind of came that way.
That's so good.
You know?
But yeah, so he
started his own insurance company. Was like, if no one's going to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, and so he insured his own part.
Is this guy dead?
Yeah, he's dead now.
He's got to be. There's no way he's survived.
He's dead now.
From his own ride.
And so then he just started going around and making up all these crazy rides. We'll hit Waterworld real quick first, and then we'll go to Motorworld. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So we'll start with Waterworld. Waterworld.
You pay us $20, we'll waterboard you.
So there's
Have you ever been waterboarded?
No, have you?
No.
I would like to.
I was gonna say it just kind of seems like one of those things that you would want to experience.
I'm kind of interested, like how quickly I would give up in like a torture situation. Because like when I was young, when you're young and you watch a movie, you're like, oh, these weak people like giving up all the secrets.
No, I never thought that.
I
was like, I would have cracked so much faster.
I'd be like, you guys are so weak. Like you just, and now I'm like, I don't know how long I'd make it.
We should figure out how waterboarding works, and then we should do that to you.
Okay, let's do it.
I don't like how fast. Okay, just how fast you're like. Yeah, please.
Yeah, let's do it.
My birthday's coming up. Can we do it then? Okay, so Waterworld.
Yes. So they had. We'll start with the wave pool. So they had a wave pool, but this was the very beginning of the wave pools, and so they were one of the first parks to ever have a wave pool. And the problem was they used chlorinated water instead of salt water. Nowadays, most wave pools use salt water because salt water makes you more buoyant. And that's why in the ocean, like you can be in waves and like relatively swim okay in them. But if you were in fresh water, like chlorinated water in a pool and the waves hit, you are significantly less buoyant. So when a wave hits you, you're just going to go under. You're not going to ride up over the wave like you do in the ocean.
Interesting.
So a lot of people really struggle with that in the wave pool. It was also 15 feet deep. And so people would swim out to the deep end and the wave would come and it'd like crush them. So what ended up happening was people would swim over to the side of the wave pool whenever the waves started coming and just like grab on to the ladders. Yeah. Just hang on the ladders. And there'd be like 30, 40 people trying to hang on this one ladder. So it's like this giant crowd and eventually someone's going to go under. So lifeguards saved a lot of people.
Yeah.
Except for two. Two people died. And they got the wave pool was nicknamed the grave pool.
Oh.
After that, because
I mean, you think about the amount of people that had to be pulled out that made it through,
totally.
that survived.
Totally. Yeah, big problem.
Yeah, I'm honest. That's something that surprises me about whitewater. That wave pool is still a thing.
Yeah, and nowadays they've figured it out. They're pretty safe. But I mean, back in the day, they were sketchy.
Yeah.
They had another one called the Aqua Scoot, which I love the name of that one.
Yeah.
So essentially, it was this 2 really long water slides.
And you have a bulldozer on each side, and then they pour water, and you just scoot the water.
You just scoot it. Now, they had like those assembly line rollers all the way down the slide. And you like sat on a little cart, and you would ride it down. And then if you did it right, then when you got to the water, you would scoot along the water like you were skipping rocks, like you were a rock that got skipped, and you skip along.
What if you did it wrong?
You'd face plant so hard, like right in the water, like belly flop face plant, like just like that.
Which happened more often?
The face plant.
For sure.
And so that was one of the safer rides, was the Aqua Scoot. It just, you looked weird when you did it.
Yeah.
There was this ride called the Tarzan Swing. Big fan of this ride. So
Is it where you swing on the rope?
Yes. So you swing on the rope and you jump off whenever you're ready into the water.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah. Super simple.
All the time.
Super safe. Right? Wrong. So
How they messed that up?
So
Every creek has one of those.
so this is they did it over the spring-fed pool. And so they had built these bridges that wrapped all the way around the pool and then went up to this almost like plank that you walked out on. And it had a 20-foot rope hanging from it. And then it was a 15-foot drop. And so you would swing, and then you drop in the water. If you did everything right, then you're okay. Most people didn't.
Right.
Because since it's a rope that you're supposed to just let go of, you could easily all the time let go at the wrong point. So people,
Yes, you can.
People constantly would swing and swing back and like hit that plank all the time and fall in the water. People would like jump too early, or they'd hang on way too long and it just kind of stopped. Or what was the worst?
That's fine, because isn't the water directly below you?
Well, yeah, you could just let go.
Just let go.
What was the worst, though, was if you jumped in and you didn't cross your arms when you jumped because you were so high. If you let your arms fly out, it would blow your shoulders your arm out of the socket.
Oh no!
And so people
you can't
come out
swim,
and they have these limp arms. Yeah, so that was pretty dangerous because it was so high. Another thing that made it super dangerous was because it was a spring-fed pool, but it wasn't a hot spring. It was a cold spring. So it was
just
ice
freezing.
cold water.
Oh, man.
And so people would literally go into shock when they hit the water and they couldn't swim anymore because it was so cold. And it was so bad that somebody actually like had a heart attack when they hit the water. That's how cold it was. They hit it shocked them so bad they went into cardiac arrest.
Did they die?
Yes.
Oh, dang it. I was going to say that's their fault, but dang it, that's rough.
Here's the best part about the Tarzan Swing, though. They had that bridge that went all the way around the outside of it. That was the line. And so you waited in line walking around this. And here's the thing. I hadn't said this yet, but the entire employee staff of this whole theme park
4 people.
was teenagers. Just a bunch of teenagers.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah, exactly. So a bunch of teenagers.
There's a murderer on the loose in the park. He's starting with the mascots.
And then he's coming for the...
And the teenagers are
then
just
he's
like,
coming for
we
the
don't know
minors."
what to do. They don't talk like that. But yeah.
But they also... We'll come back to Tarzan real quick. They also
Okay.
sold alcohol at this water park, which seems like a liability. But their insurance company's offshore, so it's fine.
Well, yeah. And they're also the insurance company, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And the miners were the ones serving the alcohol.
Obviously.
Which is... anyways, and so
And
they...
drinking it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. The staff was almost always drunk.
Yeah.
And
I got drunk from my lifeguard giving me CPR. I got secondhand drunk.
Drunk. Excuse me, sir. Have you been drinking? You can't give me CPR.
Dude, you're giving CPR and the kid goes, that's a 0.9.
Here, and so the thing about it was since
can't
they were
drive.
minors, they were just giving alcohol to anyone. They didn't card
Right,
anybody.
obviously,
They would
yeah.
just give alcohol.
They're just like,
to
oh, yeah,
anyone
you're
who
my
wanted to buy it.
friend.
Yeah, and so most people here were drunk. Here's what the Wikipedia article says, though. I love this, and it says under employees, it says most were underage, undertrained, and under the influence.
Oh my gosh. Action Park. Undertrained, underaged, and under
the influence. So there's a bunch of drunk teenagers on this bridge that wrapped around the thing, and
utter litigation.
And so what it became was a show. The teenagers are like, I've got a crowd 15 feet up off of my
for
pool.
sure, yeah.
And so they were just performing. And here's the best part about it is they're a bunch of Jersey kids, so they all suck in the 80s
As people.
Yes, and so I mean, here's the thing.
All the people the people that you encounter from Jersey right now, this is their parents.
This is their parents, and so they're up there
suck,
screaming at kids, yelling at kids. Like if a kid jumps wrong or jumps too early or jumps too late, everybody in the crowd is just belittling them and calling them names and cussing at them. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
and then kids like what it became.
Have you been to a soccer game before? Like a sporting game?
Oh, no. Well, yes, but it's been a minute. Why?
Oh, because the cauldron.
Oh, I've seen it. It's crazy.
Like when a player gets injured and the cauldron starts chanting, they're like, let him die. And I'm just like, I like this. This is good sports.
Yeah, that is the
If we do that at Arrowhead, they're like, okay, guys, sorry. No,
guys, stop that.
We need you to quit doing that.
Yeah, so that was the Tarzan Swing. Is there was just this massive crowd of teenagers that are drunk from New Jersey, just screaming profanities at each other, making fun of every kid as they jump, and then the whole point of it became who can do the most ridiculous thing when they jump. So they're like mooning each other, flashing each other, like flipping everybody off while they're jumping, and obviously getting hurt while they're doing it.
Sure.
And so it was just a mess. The Tarzan Swing.
You say it with a joy in your face. I don't know if the listeners can see it, but you say it with it was just a mess, man. It was a mess. Oh, it was terrible.
So they had these diving cliffs, right? And so just like a normal diving cliff, right?
Yeah.
They just built this big fake cliff.
I understand.
And it was 23 feet high above a 16-foot deep pool. And what was good about it, that they really had a good plan going here, was they had a railing around the top of the cliff so nobody accidentally fell off. And when it was your turn to jump, what you had to do was climb over that rail and then go onto the little platform and jump. The thing was, everybody's been in freaking Waterworld all day and they're wet and they're climbing over this rail
on the rail
and they slip on the rail and flip off this 23-foot cliff into the water. So people got hurt really bad there.
That makes sense.
But here's what the better part of this cliff is the pool below was also just a swimming pool, and anybody could just from the bottom just jump in and just swim around, and there was nothing notifying anybody.
And then there's just like someone from 23 feet up
just freaking kamikazeing kids, and nobody knew. And so people would swim and they would just get decked.
And then you just hear like
yeah, and it would just deck kids and take them down.
Bro, what happened to Denny? What the heck, man? Where'd he go?
Yeah, and so they
you hear like a kid crying because he tripped over the rail. Boom. Destroyed.
Yeah, so
it's the perfect opportunity though if you are swimming in the bottom pool and a cute girl jumps in from the top, right? Then you swim over and be like, did you just fall from heaven? And you can do some great, a lot of marriages.
That's clever. Well, what happened was...
Let's head on over to the part of the park where they just do illegal children marriages. Because that's definitely here.
So they pretty quickly, what would happen was people would jump, they get decked, they would deck somebody at the bottom, that person would swim off, and the lifeguards...
A hit and run?
Yeah, hit and run. The lifeguards wouldn't notice that somebody just got kamikazed, and so they would drown. Nobody died in this one, but they would go under, and then the lifeguards would be looking around and be like, oh, there's somebody over there.
Kid and they dive in over there.
They dive in and go get him. So what they did was they drained the water and painted the bottom of this pool white, so it'd be more noticeable. The bodies would be more noticeable.
Wait, what color was the rest of the... Because I'm picturing most pools being white at the bottom.
I think they were going for a natural look here because it was this cliffside thing. So they made it dark, so it was hard to notice the bodies. So they had to paint it white, so it was easier to notice the bodies.
Yeah, I know. You were really hammering that in.
They had this other ride called the Colorado River Ride. What was really good about this was Gene was like, I want class 4 rapids in our park. The fastest, most dangerous rapids. So they built this, the same type of thing where you get in those 5-person rafts at a water park, and it takes you around, but it's class 4 rapids.
Yeah.
And so it's super intense. Well, the state shut them down on that one. They're like, you can't go that.
That's where they drew the line?
Yeah, they're like,
listen, no, keep the kamikaze kids. That's a pretty good touch. We love the Tarzan swing. My kid came back. Oh, could not believe that. Right.
And his arms were longer.
Yeah. Couldn't sleep very well. Weird. All right. My other kid's having some weird nightmares, and our third kid came home very drunk, so fell asleep at 8:30.
So
Please
early.
keep
Please
doing
keep
that.
doing that.
But these class 4, listen, you know, and Gene, we go way back.
We go
you
way
know,
back. We go way back.
because we're both sketchy people.
We're both sketch.
But I just don't want you to do the class 4. Can you maybe bring him down to a class 3 rapid?
So that's what they did. So they brought him down.
How do you bring down, or how do you like?
They just lowered the water pressure.
Oh,
but here's the
okay.
thing. Again, there wasn't an engineer who
Is he
helped.
still
build
running
this.
the ski resort this whole time?
Yeah. So the ski resort's in the winter, and the ski resort is pretty normal.
Yeah.
Except for the Playboy Lodge in the middle of it.
In the middle of the ski resort too. It's
like ski around
you
the
gotta
lodge.
go around it.
Watch out for the bunnies.
This is the bunny slope, right? This is the.
So there was no engineers involved. So there was like points where if you didn't gain enough speed, you would like bottom out and then like just kind of go back, and then the next group would come and hit you.
Oh,
and
for
then
sure.
The next
Yeah,
group
yeah.
And they would just get these pileups. And here's the thing: it's Jersey, it's hot, it's high schoolers, it's the '80s, it's everybody's drunk, and then they crash. People got in fights all the time at these bottlenecks. They would just get out and just start fighting each other like these.
Like it was their
brawls.
fault?
Yeah, they would get in these
Like
big
your
brawls.
raft didn't move.
Yeah, like, you idiots. And they jump out and just start fighting each other. They have these massive brawls, and they didn't position lifeguards like in enough areas, so people they would go
I don't know if
unnoticed.
that's what happened. The lifeguards just didn't care. Lifeguards
were
were
putting
not
money
there.
on the fights.
Yeah, lifeguards were over there just like, dude, I'll chug this whole bottle if that guy wins. Okay, yeah, okay.
They had spots where the rafts would again pop out of the ride and just go down the mountain, and crowds would amass at those spots. And kind of like, remember when we used to cheer that people would get tased on cops?
Yes.
They'd do the same thing. They would watch
go,
the rafts come and be like,
oh,
and then they wouldn't go and be like, ah.
dang it.
And so they the sip.
Come on, then. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Come on. Yeah.
So
Stupid.
and so they had
These chairs lean real far back though. I was like, whoa.
they had a couple forks. You could pick these different forks, and it would fork off, and you could kind of steer to whichever.
Oh, okay, in the ride.
Yeah.
They just got like different kinds of utensils.
They've got all these forks.
everywhere.
Yeah, welcome to Motorworld. Here's your fast pass for the day, and here's your fork. What do I need the fork for?
Oh, you'll see.
And so there was a main fork
For
that was like a
stabbing
traditional,
people.
like the rapids. There's drops and moves and
you could
turns.
steer it?
Not really, but people you had to at some points because it was poorly designed. So you had to get out and push it while there's the rapids. But here's one of my favorite parts about it. They had one of these alternative forks where if you took it, it was like a lazy river. It was like so calm, and eventually it hit this 10-foot waterfall.
Oh my gosh.
Dropped. And it's just like, got him. I love it. And so then there's another ride called
That's the whole thing on this wall.
yeah. And it's just in this raft. All along, you're just like, well, this is kind of calm. And so
You think it fooled people. You think people
I
were,
think they
like,
were like-
yeah, instead of the whole time being like, all right, well, I'm going to have to go to the hospital right after this ride because I'm already got several
already
broken.
messed up.
I'm very glad it's kind of calmed down now and this is all right. I don't know what we're going to do. Are we getting food after that? Okay. Oh, God! You think that's what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
They had
I'm on
another
board.
ride called the Kamikaze, which is kind of like there's slides similar.
Kind of like the cliff jump thing, but it's more intentional.
More intentional. There's kind of slides like this nowadays that are probably a more safe version, but it was like one of the ones where you stand on the trapdoor and the trapdoor falls out and you have like almost vertical slide. But it was before we kind of figured that out. So this one was literally a 90-degree angle. And they had the first, it was like 20 or 30 feet where it was like you were caged inside of it. So if you flew off, you wouldn't fly off. And so you just went down. But the intensity at which you would go, because some of the way that they set it up, it would actually, you would get water shot up your butt. And so,
yeah. No, that still happens with that kind of ride. Yeah.
And so you get water shot up your butt. People would get off and they'd be like waddling away from the comic every time.
Yeah.
And it's like I watched a video and it was like you could always tell who just rode the Kamikaze
because they're like,
and
they've got a look in their face, like a violated look in their face, where they're like, they won't make eye contact with anybody.
Guys, can we go home? I'm not having fun anymore.
Can I have another drink, please?
I need more. But probably their most notorious ride is Cannonball Loop, which is a water slide that goes down at a sharp angle and loop-de-loops at the bottom. 100%
it does.
Which is a bad idea. I don't know.
Very bad idea.
But they built it, again, by someone who wasn't an engineer.
Yeah.
And what they did is they built it and they started testing it with these test dummies. And every time they tested it, they would come out without their heads. They would lose their heads somehow inside the
They were like, good to go.
Well, what they did was Gene started paying his teenage employees $100 to go down the slide and test it and see what would happen if a real person went down it. And
if they get decapitated, they at least got $100.
They at least got $100 out of it. That's a lot of money in 1980. Like, especially if you're a teenager, $100 is good cash. And so there's a bunch of kids who did it, and they were coming out like concussions, like nosebleeds, because they would go in that loop and they would fall and they like hit them.
Obviously.
Yeah, and so they, after testing it a lot, they started realizing a few things. Okay, so they created a hatch at the top for people who went up and then got stuck at the top and would fall, and so they could climb up and open the hatch and pull people out of the hatch in case they got stuck. Then they noticed, okay, a lot of people are getting concussions and nosebleeds on this, so they put a pad at the top of the loop. So that way, when you ran out on the top of the loop, if you hit yourself, you would hit the pad and it would cushion your blow, so you're okay. And so people stopped having nosebleeds and concussions when they're coming out. But people started coming out with all these like cuts, and they couldn't figure out why people had all these different cuts on them. And they're like, is there like loose nails? So they checked like every nail, every screw in the whole thing. They couldn't find any that were like misplaced. They couldn't find anything that was like jagged or not right. Eventually they took the padding out and they realized that somebody who had tested it lost a couple of their teeth and they got stuck in the cushion. So people were going up and cutting themselves on their teeth in that cushion. And that's where the cuts were coming from. Hey man, nice shirt you're wearing.
Thanks. TILLN.com/merch. Where, oh my gosh.
Sketchy. And this whole thing, it didn't even shoot you out into a pool. It was like the end of a freaking
I can't
slip
say
and slide.
anything because I'm just like,
you're just feeling your teeth.
yeah, I'm making sure they're all there.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't even go into a pool. It went into like, the end of a slip and slide where there's just that puddle and like that like little rubber stop. That's what it was. And so you had to go fast enough to go out of this loop, and you just went into this freaking 2-inch deep pond with a cushion at the end.
Yeah. Of freezing water.
Of freezing cold water.
Freezing water in all of these rides.
Yeah. So they opened it, and it was only allowed to be open for a week before the state shut them down.
The state was like, hey, guys, come on, listen. First of all,
love the Kamikaze.
Yeah, listen, my kid was constipated for a week. You cleared him right out. All right. Saved us a doctor's visit. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Also, please, listen, my kid came home not drunk the other night, stayed out till like 10 o'clock. Okay?
Come on.
Let's pump him up a little bit, okay?
Pump it.
We already took care of the rapids. Listen, this new ride. All right, my kid comes home missing some teeth. All right, my other kid comes home all cut up. Okay, tell me what do I do with that? What do I do? I got to shut it down.
I gotta shut it down. So they shut it down. It lasted for only a week, but they kept it in, so it stayed in the park for the rest of the life.
It's still there, but people can just
like,
look at it.
It was like a statue. It was like
it's kind of like, hey, remember when we almost did something like that?
Yeah, remember how crazy that was?
Remember that we could always kill you at any moment? Don't never forget.
So that is Waterworld. The funnest part about this whole place is that it was built on two opposite sides of the highway. So if you wanted to go from Waterworld to Motorworld, you had to cross the highway. Eventually, they built bridges. But
people were like just like crossing the highway?
No, they built a bridge.
Oh, okay.
So they had the bridge that went over. But right by that bridge, they conveniently placed this giant like convention center where every night they would have their fests because Gene loved Oktoberfest. And he was like,
you know what? All year round.
Yeah, literally anything that he could come up with a fest for, he just made up a fest, and that was it. And he loved like the Oktoberfest thing so far. He bought a brewery from Germany and shipped the whole brewery to his park and just put it right there. And so it was legitimately exactly.
Didn't even take it apart. It's kind of like whenever you move and you have like a couch that you put together in your apartment from IKEA, right? So it's never actually been through the door before.
No.
So then instead, what your options are either take apart the couch, right, which is the clear one,
Yep.
or move your entire apartment complex. That's probably what that trailer was out there. Was that someone just like took their whole apartment, ripped it out of the building, and then put it in an action-packed park.
That's true. So they had this, and that they would have all these festivals. And so what would happen every day
For the mostly minors.
Yeah. What would happen every day is people would spend their time at Waterworld during the day, and then at about 5 o'clock they would go over to the fest, and they would get hammered.
Yeah.
And then they would cross the bridge to Motorworld, which
in Motorworld sounds like it involves some motors.
So at Motorworld they had what they called the super go-karts, and the super go-karts.
Great.
The super go-karts were just like, they ran 20 miles an hour. So like typical go-karts.
Bumper cars, but like real cars.
Yeah. So they realized the staff, the 16-year-old staff realized one day, if you put a tennis ball in the motor, you could get it up to 55 miles an hour instead of just 20. And so... So the staff went around and just shoved tennis balls in all the motors so they could go faster. And the staff actually would occasionally just take the go-karts out on that highway that ran through the middle of the park, and they'd just drive it down the highway, these little go-karts, because they're teenagers and drunk.
Yeah.
And so people would get on these super go-karts, they'd be hammered, and they'd be going 55 miles an hour on this little go-kart, and they would just be ramming into each other, causing accidents, causing crashes. They had bumper carts, but nobody bumped in the bumper. They wanted to bump in the go-karts because they went faster.
Yeah.
So that's pretty great.
Is it?
They had what they call the battle action tanks there.
I hope that people don't watch this episode. I hope this is a listener one, because your face is pretty disturbing, honestly. Like the whole thing. Okay, you're like, here's so this is like, oh, pretty good, you know.
Here's the thing. A lot of people got really hurt.
If you put two tennis balls in, wow.
6 people died, and it's really sad. It was really sad. But
that being said,
I can't get over how crazy it is.
There you go,
I can't get over that somebody actually did all this.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't seem real. But so they had the battle action
all
tanks.
in one place too. It'd be like if someone had a go-kart track and they did that. That's one thing.
You're like, whoa.
But to also own a place where you have to repaint the pool because kids are drowning so often.
Hey boss, we can't see the bodies in that pool.
At what point do you go like, wow, I mean, maybe seatbelts do have a purpose. You know? Like maybe those people aren't all crazy.
For real. So they had these battle action tanks, right? And they were just these little mini tanks that you could climb in, and they had like a grate all around them. They had little targets on them, and they shot tennis balls. If you could hit the targets, then it would disable your tank, and your tank would just spin in circles for a couple minutes.
Oh,
so
cool.
It was actually a really cool ride.
That sounds really neat.
And outside, on the sides, they had cannons for everybody in line to shoot at everybody.
Even better was you could take those on the highway, you know?
And then
just shooting tennis balls at people.
Balls at the cars. So
people on the side could be shooting tennis balls at them too.
Tennis ball? Yeah, so they're shooting tennis balls at them. Well, here's the thing. One guy one day noticed, hey,
if I put a tennis ball in this thing,
this guy brought his own gallon of gasoline into the park. So I don't know how he got into the park.
Dude, people are sneaking like Route 44 things of like vodka, and this guy is pulling out a whole thing of gasoline.
He goes in with his gasoline, and he just covers his tennis balls in gasoline, throws a match in there, and starts shooting flaming tennis balls in this course.
And Eugene was like, oh my gosh, Hire that guy.
He's like, we need him making some
This
rides.
is way better. This is way better. Can you figure out how to get the balls to do a little loop-de-loop before they hit the tanks? Because that's even cooler.
Yeah, and so things didn't go well there. People got burned. And then they had some water rides in Motorworld. So they had bumper boats, like a typical bumper boat. And then they had the super speed boats. And so the super speed boats, it's go-karts with miniature speedboats.
Sounds pretty freaking cool.
Here's the catch of the speedboats is they were sized for someone who's 4 feet tall. And so
Perfect.
if you were larger than 4 feet tall, you had to dangle your limbs at the side of like over the side of these speedboats.
Great.
And so your feet are just in this water. And so this was not a pool, but this was like a natural grotto that was infested with snakes. Like infested. And so people are riding their little carts through and they're getting bit by these snakes
Oh
as they ride
gosh,
through.
no.
And here's the thing.
I hate
Their
it.
boats most of their boats were broken partially, so they had
Obviously.
oil leaks. And so this water has oil and gas in it. And people are getting burns from having their limbs in this water.
And there's a guy shooting flaming tennis balls
tennis balls
into oil covered water. So it's literally like one of those scenes in seems like a Samuel L. Jackson movie where he's like, I'm tired of all these snakes in this here
grotto.
pond, in this grotto. He's like, I'm tired of these snakes in this grotto. And it's like on fire with snakes being and like you're like in a tiny boat and like you're just and you're doing the boat noises too and it's broken. You're like trying to, and it's like doing the
Yep. And people just had control of it. They could just do whatever they wanted with it. They would capsize all the time. And so people would capsize. They'd get stuck in them underwater, and the lifeguards would come out to flip the boat in the snake-infested oily water.
Do you think the turnover rate for lifeguards was high at this
No,
thing?
people worked throughout their whole high school career
That's what I'm
because they
saying.
could just get drunk all day and do whatever they
yeah.
wanted. And like they would throw these crazy parties every night. Once the park closed, all the high schoolers would stay and throw a crazy party because they had endless alcohol. And like they could just do whatever. They were the only employees. Gene was there. He would show up and walk around like freaking Willy Wonka, like he was some celebrity. And he'd be like, "Look what I've created!
He's like, look what I've done! Yes, it is an empire of teenagers who are all monsters in their own right." But he's got a pipe with him all the time. But when the state says no and God says yes, who am I to go against the God of creation and fun? All right, then carry on.
right,
You
then,
and
carry
you
on,
would go and do like an inspirational speech. Like, hey, like all the kids like just drinking. He's like the adult in a movie that comes in. He's like, hey, and they all look, and he's like, that beer looks too empty to me, and they're like, oh.
Yep.
And then he starts shooting flaming tennis balls at kids.
Run, kids! Alcohol is flammable, you idiots.
Yeah, if this breaks your skin, you're going to burst into flames. Kind of hope it happens.
Meet me at the Tarzan jump.
Yeah, you can see, but here's how it starts, though. Eugene didn't become, he wasn't just this monster, all right?
No.
It started when when Eugene was in his, 20s, right?
Yeah,
and he's reading about some pretty crazy stuff going on, and he's like, "Can you believe they did that?
Can you believe it?"
Can you believe they did that? That's pretty crazy."
And he's like, "That's."
And then 20 years later, he's just like, "Ah!" It's like a scene by scene where he's just like, you see him finding, he's like, "Wait, you can shoot flaming? Oh,
You can shoot.
and then it cuts to immediately 20 years later. He's like, "Oh!" Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, people would fall out of these boats and they'd crash. People would drive the boats up onto the dock and they'd fly up on the dock. And there's speedboats. And there was one interview I saw with an old employee who was like, "Yeah, I was working the speedboats one day." And everyone was pulling to the docks. This one kid pulled up the dock like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Another kid just pulled up and just freaking railed the side of him and jumped up over him. And the kid went down, so his head was facing down and was crouched into it. And the motor was right behind his head, just sitting there spinning, and that close to just decapitating this kid. But that kid was fine. He was fine. Well, he wasn't fine, but he got hurt, but he lived. Yeah. So. Literally no rules. Crazy place. The town of Vernon was a small town. They didn't have. They were running 7 to 9 ambulance trips a day.
Oh
at
my
Action
gosh!
Park. And so the town came to Action Park and was like, "Hey, you have to shut down because we can't keep up with how many injuries you have."
Right.
And so the Action Park bought 3 of their own private ambulances so they could run their ambulance rides.
They're like, "Oh yeah, no, we'll just make that a new ride."
Yeah.
We got Waterworld, Motorland, and then Hospital Trip. And it's like where you can get in this and listen, ambulance gonna go pretty fast.
It's gonna go real fast.
And for $20 you can drive it.
For $30 they'll stick you with something.
Yeah, while you're driving it. That's right. That's right.
So the city came to him and was like, "Hey, things aren't going well with this."
I don't know if you've noticed. And he's like, "What's going on with my teenager employees down there?" I don't know why he's like some kind of like whole anyway.
But so it was actually the state. The state was like, "Hey, we're gonna shut you down.
Yeah,
like, this isn't going well." And he was like,
"That same guy is like, oh, I hate to do it, man."
Well, he got in this legal battle with the state, and he lost the battle, and so he ended up settling with them, and they let him stay open. But he settled and just paid a lot of money. But what he did was he became the worst tenant in history, and like just wouldn't pay rent, like did all these things to make life really, really hard in the state until eventually the state was like, "All right, fine, the land is yours," and they just gave up.
Just fine, whatever.
Like, we're just sick of dealing with you.
Yeah.
And so he became the owner of the land.
Please tell your goons, your drunk lifeguards, to stop driving speedboats into our living rooms. How are they even doing that?
Okay. There's no water anywhere around
understand.
us.
I'm tired. Please stop.
They brought one of those above ground pools and set it in the front yard, and then put the boat.
And like the family didn't notice at all, dude. The family's just inside.
The
These are state reps, they're very busy. All right, and like they're just like plows through the wall, and they're like, whoa.
How'd you do that?
Oh man. All right, fine. You can have the land.
Max from Jersey's like, "Man, I'm so glad my parents bought this in-ground pool."
Why is there a Playboy bunny in the boat?
So it ran. They ended up getting 110 grand jury indictments.
Great.
Yeah, grand jury indictments, mostly leading back to their insurance company for insurance fraud because, it wasn't a real company.
Yeah.
And so somehow Gene was able to dodge all of his convictions. So a bunch of his staff got convicted and went to prison, but he somehow dodged it because he's got the world's
Did they go to prison or juvenile?
Yeah, they went to juvie. There was a few of his staff that were adults.
Right.
Those were the people who built the rides. They weren't professionals, but they were at least adults.
So, they're arresting the people who built the rides.
Who helped build the rides. Yeah. They did have a skate park for a little bit. They had a monorail that ran through the park. They had some legit rides that weren't super dangerous. Like they had one of those slingshot things. They had like the Tower of Doom thing.
Yeah.
And then they had like a bunch of other slides that weren't super sketchy. But all in all, it is one of the most dangerous skate parks or theme parks ever. The skate park was super dangerous too. It wasn't even, so people crashed all the time. But it was one of the most dangerous places ever. Eventually, they couldn't keep up with all of the problems, and in '96 they were forced to shut down because the year before that they were forced to leave their fake insurance company. They couldn't get real insurance, and then they got in.
And they're like, "Well, if you don't have insurance," he's like, "We had insurance.
We had it, but they killed my fake insurance." And so, but in 2014 they reopened. They reopened. His son reopened it. Gene had died in 2012. His son reopened it in 2014, and after 2 years as Action Park, he changed the name because he realized the connotations were. Action Park.
Is it like a legit park now, though?
Yeah, and so now it's actually like they fall in line with a lot of rules, and like it's actually like a pretty safe place.
You said a lot of rules. I don't like the way that he's like, they fall in line with a lot of rules. That's not all of them. That's not all of them. No. That's not all the rules. It's like, hey, do you guys follow all the rules? Oh, we follow a lot of them. If someone said that to me, I'd be like, okay, great. I don't want to die at your park.
We follow some.
I follow.
We follow a rule.
Most of them.
We follow a rule.
Yeah, I followed rules before.
Wait, are you saying rule or rules? Because there's a difference. Is it plural or singular? We follow a rule.
No. I follow Raul. Did you just say Raul?
Raul? I think you mean Ja Rule.
Do you mean Harul? It's pronounced Harul.
Harul. Yeah, so...
Are they still open?
They're still open today.
What's it called now?
New name. I think it's
Silver City.
I think it's like Vernon Valley Park or something like that.
You know about the water park here in Kansas City, right?
Yep. But so he reopened it, and his goal is to bring back the Cannonball Loop, but do it right this time. So it's
we're gonna bring back the Cannonball Loop, and it's gonna work for a lot of people. No. That's not all of them. That's not all.
No, it's a 90-foot drop, and then a 30-foot loop, and then it shoots you out. But in this one, what they're doing is there's like a cartridge you get in, and you ride the cartridge all the way down. Like you lay inside of it, and it takes you all the way down. So that way, like you're on like a track almost, and you can't fall out, and you're like harnessed in. And there's like misters in it, so you can get wet.
There's misters in there?
I don't know about that.
There better not be any misters in there.
Sorry, mister. I'm just trying to ride this ride.
Excuse me, mister. Can you at least close your mouth so I don't get these cuts up on your teeth?
Mister, your teeth are cutting me. Mister, watch your teeth. Yeah.
Well, and to memorialize Gene, his dentures are placed in the ride. Somewhere in there.
You're like, oh hey, look, there's Gene's mouth.
Yeah. If you can get a selfie with him, you get free admission to the park next week.
Free admission. Yeah, so it's
that's pretty wild.
It's got.
What's the park called now?
It's like Vernon Valley Park or something like that.
Okay.
It had taken a lot of nicknames over the years, like Accident Park, Traction Park. My favorite is Class Action Park.
Right.
So.
What's their Yelp reviews like?
Probably pretty bad.
That's pretty wild. That
They're not on Yelp.
Dang.
They changed their name. So so Action Park, one of the most dangerous places to ever exist, and definitely didn't turn Vernon into Orlando.
Yeah. You know what's pretty wild is that as one of the kids was falling off the cliff, you could just hear. Hey, thanks so much for watching Things I Learned Last Night. If you like that, there are more episodes you can watch, or you can watch some highlights, but please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode in the future.